Greetings. Happy New Year. I hope this finds you all well. I hope it finds you having peace in your surroundings. I hope it finds your family healthy. It is January 1st, 2021. Today marks 3 years since I had my very last prescribed routine medication. For the people watching this video, I'm doing a live feed on Facebook while I'm videoing this. So if you see me looking back and forth, that's what's going on. Oh, thanks, Toya. So anyway, yeah, I took my the last medication I came off of was Seroquel. It's a medication I should have never been prescribed. I do not have any conditions. It was given to me for an off-label use for sleep. And I was on it for about 1.5 years. I was put on it in July of 2016 when I was hospitalized coming off of benzodiazepines and opiates. And I was prescribed other medications. So anyway, my backstory is starting in 1985, I had a child die. I was prescribed Valium. That was the first time I was given a psychiatric medication for a situation that wasn't a psychiatric event. It was life. But that is the way that life events are treated by the medical establishment. Fast forward to 1990 when I am a single mother with 3 children under the age of 6. No child support, no support of any kind really, no one helping me with my children on a regular basis. And I had a panic attack and I was prescribed Xanax. And it was just the most fabulous thing that ever happened to have that little pill, and I felt so good, and I can go back to work, and it didn't make me sleepy, and it didn't make me feel bad, and it was great. So I had Xanax for as needed for panic attacks. Then I developed depression, which I probably have had depression my entire life because I have had underlying untreated, undiagnosed PTSD, and depression's part of that. But I was diagnosed with depression after being divorced and given antidepressants. So these prescriptions that got started, they all have side effects. Every prescription, like say you go to the doctor and you're depressed and you're having a hard time sleeping, and so they prescribe this medication, they prescribe an antidepressant. Well, oftentimes the side effect of the antidepressant might be insomnia. So then they prescribe you something for sleep. And a side effect or a toxic effect of that medication might be stomach irritability, diarrhea. So then they give you some Lamotil because you have chronic diarrhea now because you're taking this medication that you have to take to combat the side effect of the other medication. So lo and behold, that's how I got this list of over 18 medications that were given to me between 2010 and 2018. And there probably were ones that I did not get on the list, but I know there was at least 18 different prescriptions that I was given. No one ever forewarned me that it might hurt coming off them. No one ever talked about coming off them. They told me I would have to be medicated the rest of my life, that I had conditions that warranted being on an antidepressant and possibly having an antipsychotic and something for anxiety indefinitely. I mean, how can they determine that? Everything changes. Everything changes. That's the only thing that's certain in life is change. So how can they tell me when I'm 20, 30, 29 years old that I need to take a medication the rest of my life for a situation that could change? Because once I'm past being freaked out about getting divorced and having 3 little kids that I have to provide for all by myself, I probably don't need the antidepressant anymore, right? Yeah, well, they never talked about that. So anyway, I became disabled from being a nurse in 2011. I had a work-related injury. Oops, excuse me. I had a work-related injury, and for like the third or fourth time injured my back. I'd been in a motor vehicle accident in 2006 and had treatment for 2 years for a back injury, and I slipped at work at the hospital and I injured my back and it tweaked it, and it just started this chain reaction of pain and fibromyalgia flare up, and then I couldn't work, and then I was fighting the system and fighting disability and fighting workman's comp, and and then there's no money, and so things spiraled. Here I'm working as a nurse. I'm making a good income. I have a nice apartment. I have a nice life, and then a little bit in savings, and lo and behold, I can't work. And that little bit of savings went pretty quick. They denied disability, short-term and long-term. Well, I had short-term for a short period of time, but then they denied it. They said it wasn't work-related. It was just this big mess. If you've ever been through workman's comp and all of that, you know that it's very, very challenging. So anyway, my doctor, my own physical doctor, my own personal doctor took me off work. She said, you can't work physically, and then the pain was causing depression and anxiety and other things. So I got taken off work, and then I couldn't pay my rent, and so I lost my home and became homeless, and that was the start of my crazy life for almost 9 years, starting in 2011. And I ended up in Southern Oregon, and I got a nurse practitioner. And at that time, I was on Effexor, and I was on Xanax as needed. Those were the only two medications that I was on: Effexor 37.5 milligrams and Xanax as needed. And I wasn't taking it too much, but between coming off work and pain and everything, then they gave me muscle relaxers, and then they gave this, and they want me to go back to work, but then they're giving me all these medications that no one can work as a nurse on these medications, because you can't function very well when you're on opiates and muscle relaxers and benzodiazepines, and then you've got antidepressants, and so between 2011 and 2014, they just kept adding new meds, and I'd have a side effect, and they'd add a new one, and then I couldn't handle this med, so they'd try another med. And at one point I was on opiates. I was on oxycodone between 60 and 90 milligrams daily. I was on Xanax 3 to 5 milligrams daily. I was on Effexor 150 milligrams daily. I was on Robaxin 1,000 milligrams twice a day. I was on ibuprofen 800 milligrams 3 times a day. I mean, I was just on so much stuff, and I was bedridden, and I had suicidal ideation. I was severely depressed. I was in pain. I was miserable. And someone introduced me to FICO, full extract cannabis oil, and said, this might help you more than those pain pills are, and you might have a better life. So you want to try it? And I did. And I was, over a period of a couple months, I saw great benefit. And it's like, I'm not having to take as much opiates. Maybe it'll help for some of these other meds. So I started slowly tapering off some of the other meds. But then in 2016, summer of 2016, I'd had a lot of stress. I took on a project I had no business taking on for someone who did not have my best interests at heart, even though I had their best interests at heart. And I dealt with a lot of people who really weren't being forthright, weren't being honest, did not have good integrity. And I was really sick coming off all these meds. It affected me. And a whole bunch of really bad things happened, and I had quit taking opiates after tapering off them in May, and then not thinking I had tapered off Xanax, I'd gone from 3 to 5 milligrams daily down to 1 milligram daily, but I wasn't thinking really good because of coming off the opiates, and so I discontinued that abruptly, and that started a chain of events that really altered the trajectory of my life the last 5 years, 4.5 years. I ended up homeless again. Actually kicked to the curb on the streets with no warning. I left with a suitcase. That's all I was able to get. There was a lot of things that could have gone a lot different, but people utilized an abuse of power and put me on the streets, literally. And that's the way that it went. And that's the way it does go for mentally ill people. And it's really kind of sad. I was sick and I was behaving badly. I could not control everything that I did at that time. I was sick. And people who could have helped, instead of helping, they made it worse. But they weren't sick, but yet they still did really bad behaviors. And that makes it just worse for those of us going through this stuff when people react really badly, which a lot of people did. And regardless of what they did, here I am. So it all worked out. I ended up, I've been a lot of different places. I've had couch hopping. People have, they see, a lot of people know that I've always been a very hard worker. So even though I'm disabled, there have been people that have been seeing my strengths. And so they're like, oh, well, you can come help on my property. I'll have you do this. And then you have a place to live. And then I get there and they want a whole lot more. They don't really get that I am disabled. And so I've hopped all over the place, and then I finally got my RV, and I've been here on my friend's property for the last 3 years since I took the last medication. That happened New Year's Day, January 2018. So the last 5 years, my body's been through quite a bit coming off these meds. I've been left with some life-altering neurological deficits. I'm actually going to go be evaluated for a neuropsych eval next week. I wasn't able to drive for a couple years because I couldn't see very well. My eyes will bounce sometimes, or like if I'm driving and I look this way, it makes my stomach kind of flip and my head feel all woozy. And so I've had the visual problems. I haven't been able to read very well because I can't stay focused. I don't remember words all the time. My vocabulary has probably dropped by at least 25 or 30% because I can't recall words. And I used to have a very elaborate, extensive vocabulary, and I don't anymore. I still have some insomnia. It's been worse. I had COVID, and insomnia has come back. But it was doing a lot better for many years. When I was medicated for insomnia, I didn't sleep at all. I was on Xanax and Xanaflex and Ambien all at the same time, which is like crazy. And I still was only sleeping an hour a day. So now I sleep, 3 or 4 hours, sometimes 6 or 7. So that's better, but it's still there. I was really, really irritable for a while, super irritable. I was so uncomfortable. I was just pissed off all the time about everything, and that's got better. I'm much better able to manage my reactions to life, but I wasn't for a while. It was embarrassing, but it was what it was. It wasn't like I was trying to act out or be a bad person or do anything manipulative to anybody or anything. It was just I was sick. I was just sick, and I couldn't always control what my reaction was. I just reacted. But my central nervous system has got better. I have mad skills. I have been through cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, talk therapy, group therapy. I've had a therapist for a very long time. Thank goodness the one I have now actually has been helping me make a difference. And Yeah, I don't think there's anybody who knows me today that would say I need to be medicated the rest of my life. Yeah, I still have hard times. I still get depressed. Hell, I had 2 kids die. I had a baby die in 1985, and then I had my 36-year-old son die a year and a half ago. I don't know very many moms who wouldn't have periods of depression when they've had their children that have died. I don't know many people who wouldn't go through some depression that haven't gone through some of the pain and trauma and homelessness and rejection and abandonment that I've gone through. So, some of those things are still there, but they don't mean I need to be medicated for it. I'll say for myself, as far as being medicated, I think at the time everybody was probably doing the best that they could do. I think the doctors were doing what they've been trained to do. I was trying to be a good patient. I was wanting to get checked into life, and yet the path that I was shown with pharmaceuticals actually took me more out of life. And I don't think anybody intended for all of this to happen. I don't, while I'm upset with the pharmaceutical industry that they, and my doctors and nurse practitioners and people who treated me, that they didn't tell me the truth. And I'm not happy with the way that I was treated at some times. But I don't think anyone intended for me to end up the way that I have. I just did. When I first was coming off the meds and struggling with so many symptoms, and I was so overwhelmed and I was terrified and I didn't understand what was going on, I was in a lot of groups online trying to figure things out. Over the years, I have left most of those groups for a variety of reasons, but the primary reason was I got the information I needed, but I was finding no benefit of watching people go over and over and over the same things week after week, year after year. Everything changes, and if it isn't changing, there's something going on, because everything changes. Even if it's a bad symptom, over time things do change. And I think a lot of people I have seen in this situation get very, very stuck, and there's no blame. It's just it wasn't helping me to listen to that over and over and over, and I wasn't able to offer them any kind of insight to help them get past that. So the groups became to where they didn't help that much. Actually, they kind of hurt in a way, and so I did leave most of them. I still stay in touch with a number of people that I met that have gone through the same circumstances I have. I hold in deep regard a few people who have unfortunately passed away during this journey. The effects were too overwhelming for them to manage. And so I think of those people. I consider myself a miracle. I truly do consider myself a miracle. I could have died. I should have died. I was suicidal. I was standing on a box with a noose around my neck and ready to hang myself. And here I am. And I'm so glad that I'm alive. And I'm so glad I didn't hang myself or hurt myself in any way. But at that time, I just thought that was going to be the solution. For me not to hurt, for me not to hurt anybody else, for me not to be a problem anymore, for life to not be a problem for me anymore. That's what I thought the solution was. And I'm not quite sure how I got off that box, and I'm not quite sure why I'm still alive, but I am, and I'm really grateful. I guess a couple things I can say about this. I guess I would tell anyone considering this, because if you're considering this, it means either your medications aren't working, or they have side effects that are making it worse, like akathisia, or worsening insomnia, or worsening suicidal ideation. There's something going on that's making you consider coming off your medication. Or you're already involved with it, or a doctor is threatening you, or I don't know. There's all kinds of situations where it happens that people come to either be forced off their medications or they choose to come off them. If you're considering choosing that, get somebody on your team that's near you. Get a family member, a friend, somebody that really has your best interests at heart and knows you're a great person inside and knows that you're going to go through some really hard times and is willing to stand with you to go through that, because there's nothing like this situation of what you go through when you come off these meds. It's terrible. Get yourself educated, get some skills, learn how to meditate, learn how to be mindful, have a good diet, be eating things that are good for your brain. Do your preparatory work. If you're making a choice to do this, do your preparatory work and go slow and steady. Don't hurry. Just go slow and steady. Do the 10% every 2 weeks or less, whatever you can handle, because this is hard. It's just hard. And I think another thing that I would like to tell people considering going through this, there isn't a fix. I see in the group so much, well, maybe if I took this, or maybe if I took that, there's no fix. You may find some relief, but if it's taking any kind of medication to override the symptom that you're trying to get away from, you're at risk of having a side effect bother you even worse, and then have to come off that medicine too, and who knows what that looks like. That's what happened with me with the Seroquel, and with increasing Infexor, and Clonidine, and Remeron, so many meds that was to cover up the symptom, and then so that meant I had to go through the hell of coming off another medication that had side effects for coming off of it. So there isn't a fix. Time is the fix. Neurogenesis is the fix. Letting our brains heal. Healing happens when you're gentle with yourself. Healing happens when you do little games to let your brain be energized by trying to do something new without a bunch of stress. Keeping the stress reduced, because the central nervous system has been so overexcited that we have to be very quiet and subdued for quite some time. So you need to know these things in advance. Anyway, that's pretty much, I guess, what I got. That's my story. I can't believe it. It's 3 years. I can't believe that I actually did it. I can't believe I lost all those years that I wasn't really myself. I sure like finding myself again. I like myself a lot these days. And even though life is really challenging in the world right now, I am very hopeful for a bright future. So anyway, that's my Happy New Year's. That's my 3 years off meds. That's my happy life, happy day today. All right? Anyway, that's all I got. All right. Peace, y'all. If you got questions, put them down at the bottom. I'll do my best to answer them. Okay? Take care. All right. Let's have a fabulous 2021. Peace.